This is From Hero to Zero, a show about the misconception of the demise of the music industry. We talk to heroes to make sense of the alleged zero, the music business. Hi Donita, how are you?
Good, how are you doing?
Very good, thank you. Thank you for giving us 15 minutes of your busy schedule and talking about L7.
Okay.
Finally. So Donita, L7, you started L7 with Susie in the mid-80s. You played until beginning of the millennium, and then you went away for about 14 years, something like that.
Correct.
And now you're back. Where do you see the difference being a musician today, 2016, compared to the late 80s and the 90s?
Well, it's very do-it-yourself, but very different from back then. Mm-hmm. You still have to do that stuff, but then in addition, you have to do a lot of social media stuff, which takes up a lot of time. Sure. And but it's a wonderful way to go directly to your fans. So I would say that that's been a very good thing for us because we already had a very large fan base. How a young person does that, who's just starting out, to separate themselves from everybody else, just using social media, I don't know how easy that would be. Mm-hmm. I think you still probably need, or what would be good, is to have a small independent label that has a roster of other artists that are kind of like-minded, you know what I mean?
Sure.
That are in your wheelhouse, you know, culturally.
Mm-hmm. You just mentioned it was easier for you because you already had a following. However, you were gone for so long, and social media wasn't around when you split up in 2001, I think, something like that.
Yeah.
How did you keep your old fans hot, let's say, and win new fans or a new generation of fans?
Well, they kind of kept us relevant because they were posting things on YouTube and on Tumblr and all these, you know, they were posting photos and videos of us before we even had a Facebook page. And then I started the Facebook page just to archive our own collection of things. And then I saw the response from the fans and it was very robust. So then we started to talk about maybe playing some shows. Exactly,
and then at the end of 2014, I think December, you sent out a message through your Facebook page asking if your fans were serious about the band coming back together. Can you elaborate on that?
Well, there's a very big difference between people liking something, that sort of engagement, and then the sort of engagement you need for people to come out to your shows. So that's the casual liking is great, but will the bodies actually show up to the show? So that post was very interesting because we kind of said, hey, how serious are you guys about us coming back? And what was the cool thing about that was that it got picked up by press internationally. So it was almost more that it got picked up by press, which was very much a surprise to us, than the post itself. Because then it really got the word out that we were going to be possibly coming back.
Mm-hmm. And that then, I think later on also led to a Kickstarter campaign for your documentary.
Yes.
Which
sort of.
But the Kickstarter campaign raised $130,000 or over $130,000, if I'm correct.
Yes.
Which is a tremendous amount of money, which lots of bands today, they don't reach that.
Right.
How did you do it?
Well, the producers did the Kickstarter campaign, but we were cooperative with creating some of the levels. Like we had a seance. You know what a seance is? When you contact the spirits.
That kind of seance?
Yes. We had a seance with L7, and we did a lot of signing of exclusive things, records, etc. So we contributed that way, but we were actually a little afraid to do a Kickstarter because if it had failed, it would have been our failure, not the film's failure. Do you know what I mean? So it was a little, but the fact that it was a success was great. So
Did you anticipate that kind of success?
No, we didn't think about that success that much. We were just sort of helping out the producers of the film.
Okay.
So,
talking about success, you've been touring now for about a year since you came back as L7.
yes.
Something like that. But you don't have new music. You didn't record a new album, so you're basically playing songs which are quite old, which I enjoy a lot, I would like to point out here.
Yes.
I forgot my question.
Is it why are we doing this? Well,
yes. Isn't it, you live off your legacy, basically, the legacy
Yes.
of L7.
Yes.
Do you think that is crucial nowadays for any kind of band?
Well, you have to have a legacy to begin with, but you know, we haven't been touring solid. We did a few shows last summer, 3 weeks in Europe, and we're playing long weekends in the United States during the summers. But we're going to Australia next month. But so we're not doing this full time. We're not a full-time band. We have other lives back home. We wish this could be a full-time thing, but reality is that.
Hopla.
Oopsie.
Nothing happened. It's silence phone.
Reality is that that's not the case. But there is a lightness of being to not promoting a record. And we're just having fun and doing the old songs and to not have that pressure. And we don't have a record label. We don't have big management. It's just sort of us with a manager, a small manager, and a small press agent. So it's just this island that goes around. But maybe next year we'll write a couple songs and put something out.
Good to hear, good to hear.
Yeah.
I read in an interview with Conversations with Bianca.com that she asked you if there were no apprehensions signing to a major when you went from Smell the Magic to Bricks Are Heavy.
Yes.
And you said that you wanted to make the jump because of distribution, because
Yes.
of course with Warner Brothers, that was, I think, in Mercury, you had a wider distribution. Nowadays, however, would you do that again? Would you go with a major, or would you, like you said in the beginning, stick to a more do-it-yourself approach?
I don't think we would sign to a major, and I don't think a major would want us. I think right now we would stick with an independent label. However, back then, if you got on a major label, you could get on MTV, and you could get into mainstream press. And that was always very important to me because I feel that infiltrating the masses is actually very subversive. And I had no problem getting onto MTV and being in the living rooms of teenagers out in the suburbs. It's cool to be an underground act and to remain urban and hip and everything, but it's also really cool and subversive to reach some really young people who are not involved in any scene, and yet they see you on MTV and they're like, what is this? And then it gets them excited and gets them into checking out different stuff. So, that's kind of something that we strived for, which I don't think we could have done by staying on a small label. It took that mainstream big label to kind of get us into people's living rooms.
Sure. But would you say today it would be different?
I don't know what's going on in the music industry that much. I mean, it seems like the people who get on television and into people's living rooms are pop stars and glamour girls. And I don't think that there's, I think that the grunge era, that early 90s era was unique. And I think its biggest legacy was how many women were playing in bands and getting into mainstream of all different kinds, but now it seems to be you've got to be sort of a pop person to get that sort of access to the media. But I could be wrong. I don't follow it that closely, to be honest, but you'd probably know more than me.
I saw an old interview with on Roseanne.
Roseanne.
Exactly, where you mentioned, I don't know about the airplane incident where you flew a plane with a banner saying board something, try L7 over the Lilith Fair.
We did two. We flew one plane over the Lilith Fair that said bored, tired, try L7. because we thought that the Lilith Fair was very blasé. Even though I like a lot of the artists that were on the Lilith Fair, I didn't think it was, I didn't think it showed women in music as much as they said they did. And then we flew one over the Warped tour that said, Warped needs more beaver, which, you know, because they didn't have very many women on their thing. So we flew them on the same day, 2 different festivals, and we spent all our money on that. That was kind of our last hurrah of being pranksters and being punk rockers.
Well, I thought it was a great guerrilla marketing
guerrilla marketing too,
tactic. And also what struck me was you mentioned the war on mediocrity in that show. We've talked to many different artists over the past couple of months, and some of them, they raised the issue of mediocrity in music, because it's... do you have an opinion on that?
I think it's always been there, and I think it's something to separate yourself from. And, you know, there's always been mediocrity and there's always been brilliance. And, you know, we're probably somewhere in between, but, you know, there's always something cool going on and there's always something shitty going on. So just make sure you're one of the cool ones.
Sure.
Right.
And I heard that you don't play to tapes live. Is that correct?
No, we do not play to tapes. However, on this tour, we're doing a song we never did back in the day called Shirley. It's a song Jennifer Finch wrote. And we've got samples. So our drum tech is hitting some samples of like race car driving stuff, because that's part of the song. So we would never be able to do that song live without the triggers. So, but human operated.
Human operated.
Yes.
That sounds great.
Yes.
Last question. When does the documentary come out? I couldn't find an actual release date.
Well, the documentary will be in 2 film festivals in November in the United States. So I would imagine that they want the physical release by Christmas. So.
Okay, fingers crossed.
Okay.
Great. Donita, it was a pleasure. Thank you so much.
Thank you so
All the
much.
best.
Okay, cool, man. Thank you.